What's happening, everybody? On today's show, we will get you caught up on the latest from spring football practices across the SEC, including a tidbit on the Auburn quarterback battle, a wide receiver ready for the spotlight at Tennessee, and South Carolina picks up another transfer player on offense. Speaking of South Carolina, Dawn Staley and the women's basketball team, they are national champions once again for the second time in 5 seasons. Also, we'll recap the latest guys turning pro and coming back in men's SEC basketball, and the Tennessee Vols, they're the hottest team in SEC baseball. We'll get you caught up on the weekend that was on the diamond around the conference. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. This episode is brought to you by Stat Hero. Stat Hero reshaping the way you play fantasy sports. Dozens of house-based games to play daily. No sharks, no funky props. Just your skill versus the lineups you choose. Sign up today at stathero.com/lockedon. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. Let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start over at Auburn as Brian Harsin and company going through some changes this offseason, wrapping up their third week of spring practice. One of the big questions throughout this spring is that quarterback spot. On Saturday, Brian Harsin, speaking with the media, said TJ Finley has been getting most of the reps. Additionally, he said Oregon transfer Robbie Ashford still getting plenty of work, while Zach Calzada is limited with that shoulder issue coming over from Texas A&M. Now, Harsin said Zach would be getting more reps, but he is limited. He's not getting as many team reps. He's wearing the yellow jersey. He said it's killing him. He wants to get out there and play, and I know he can. So that real competition really won't start up until Calzada is back out on the field. Keep in mind, Auburn's 8A spring game coming up this Saturday, April 9th. So expect a lot of TJ Finley. But again, we won't get any clarity on who's going to win the quarterback job between Finley and Calzada really until summer into the fall. Meanwhile, over at Tennessee, Jalin Hyatt looks to be poised for a huge season this season. Vols head coach Josh Heupel had some high praise for Hyatt, talking about what he's seeing out of the third-year wide receiver. He said, look, Jalin has made a huge jump. Different mindset, different focus. Because of that, he has different work habits, unbelievable offseason strength and conditioning before we got to even competing on the field. He's continuing to get better, playing in competitive situations, understanding how to do the things we want to do at the wide receiver spot, playing without the football in his hands. He's becoming a much more physical football player, changing his body type, and those two things go together hand in hand. Gaining confidence, that shows up in the way that he has played. In his Tennessee career, Jalin Hyatt has played in 23 games. He heads into this season with 41 catches for over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. The bowl game, he had 3 catches for 35 yards and a score. Of course, the Vols and Josh Heupel will open up the season September 3rd against Ball State. Jalin Hyatt set for a big year for the Vols. Meanwhile, over at Alabama, Nick Saban and the Tide among one of the favorites to compete for the national championship this year. Of course, Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Bryce Young is back, as well as Will Anderson, one of the best, if not the best defenders in the country. Nick Saban said he likes the attitude of his team so far. After Saturday's practice, he said, look, this team's been really good. This team doesn't have any complainers. Guys just do what they're coached to do. They work hard. We don't have a lot of negative guys on this team, and we have some real positive leadership, which is always important. And hopefully we can build on that. So it's easy to start that way. It's more difficult to sustain it. Hopefully this team will be able to sustain that, and that'll help us in terms of developing when the fall rolls around. So Nick Saban saying not a lot of complainers on this team. That's a good thing. Meanwhile, over at South Carolina. Spencer Rattler, of course, gaining a lot of attention, and he will have a new weapon in his arsenal as Shane Beamer and South Carolina Gamecocks welcoming in Corey Rucker, as he announced over the weekend that he is transferring from Arkansas State to South Carolina. Corey Rucker and Spencer Rattler, two new pieces of a South Carolina offense. Going to look a lot different from last year's 7-win team. Rucker, by the way, 59 catches, 826 yards, and 9 touchdowns last season at Arkansas State. He also had 20 yards and a touchdown as a rusher. So yet another weapon for Shane Beamer's crew to jump into. Meanwhile, over at Texas A&M, Devon Achane, one of the best running backs on the roster for Texas A&M. He's also one of the fastest guys on their roster, bar none. He's also one of the fastest guys in the SEC. On Saturday, he set a meet record against Texas. He ran the 100-meter sprint in 10.12 seconds, beating the meet record of 10.28. That is SEC speed. Achane finished in first place with that time. His speed, of course, translates to the football field. And this year, he should be the featured back in the Texas A&M offense now that Isaiah Spiller is on his way to the NFL draft. There you have it. That's the latest around the conference in football news. When we return, we'll get into some basketball news as well as celebrate the South Carolina women's basketball team becoming national champions. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, need to remind you guys about Stat Hero. Look, the national championship game is tonight. And while there's no SEC team in it and your bracket is definitely busted by now, there is a chance for you to get in on the action. And Stat Hero is the answer. They've got tons of different pick'ems and different lineups going up against one another that you can choose from. You need to go check them out right now. It's stathero.com/lockedon. Stat Hero, the easiest and fastest way for you to get in to your sports action fix. Of course, the simple, sleek gameplay will have you playing in minutes. It is what daily fantasy was meant to be. Sign up right now, stathero.com/lockedon, and make sure you use our promo code lockedon. That's going to get you a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon. Use our promo code lockedon. Get a 100% match. stathero.com/lockedon. Promo code lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Go along here, Locked On SEC. And man, it's not all the time we get to celebrate a champion in SEC hoops, and we got to give a props shout out to South Carolina women's basketball team. They are national champions once again. The Gamecocks beat UConn 64-49 on Sunday night. Aaliyah Boston, who won National Player of the Year honors, she scored 11 points but pulled down a team-high 16 rebounds, also had 2 blocks and played some outstanding defense. Destiny Henderson, she led the team scoring 26 points in the victory. And Dawn Staley's bunch, who played some great defense all year, well, they did it when it mattered most against a really good UConn team, holding them to 12 points or less in 3 of the 4 quarters in the win over the Huskies. In South Carolina, they become just the 8th school to have won multiple national championships in women's basketball. Now they join fellow SEC team Tennessee in that category. And Dawn Staley, can't say enough about her. Now a 2-time national champion as a head coach, 4 trips to the Final Four. And she has made South Carolina not just one of the most elite programs in the SEC, but one of the most elite programs in the country. Very impressive what she has been able to do there, recruiting at an elite level. And probably not going to be the last time we talk about South Carolina being national champions. Of course, some attention a couple years ago with the COVID shortened season. A lot of people thought that squad that she had was good enough to win it all. Again, major props going out to South Carolina women's basketball team, national champions again, 2017 and now 2021, 2022. And can't say enough about what they've done. It has been an outstanding run. And again, going to be one of the favorites next year to win it all. But congrats to them, and congrats to South Carolina Gamecock fans. Certainly something to be proud of. Some other notes around the SEC basketball world. On the men's side of things, J.D. Note, been a big part of Arkansas's back-to-back Elite Eight title or runs they've had these last couple of years. Note averaged over 18 points a game this year, second in the conference only to Scottie Pippen Jr. at Vanderbilt. Note did have another year of eligibility, but on Sunday he announced on social media he will forego that year, and he is going to sign with an agent and declare for the NBA draft. In addition to his 18 points this year, averaged close to 5 rebounds, close to 4 assists, and had an SEC best 2.3 steals per game. So J.D. Note striking while the iron's hot. He's going to head on to the next level. Walker Kessler, a talented big man for Auburn. He's announced his plans for next season, and he is heading to the NBA draft. He said, I'm excited to announce I will enter my name into the draft. Auburn will always be my home, and I am forever grateful. Kessler started his career at North Carolina before he transferred to Auburn last summer, developed into one of the best shot blockers in the country, and had a outstanding front court with Jabari Smith, who certainly could be the number one pick in this year's draft. Kessler also received the Naismith National Defensive Player of the Year honors, was named a third-team All-American after he averaged 11 points, 8 rebounds, and 4.5 blocks in 26 minutes per game. He led Auburn to an SEC regular season championship and won first-team All-Conference and Defensive Player of the Year recognition along the way. Meanwhile, Zep Jasper, he's coming back to Auburn next season. That is from CBS Sports' John Rothstein. Jasper would be a 6-year super senior with the COVID waiver. He spent 4 seasons at Charleston, arriving at Auburn as a redshirt senior before this last season. So Jasper coming back for another season at Auburn, looking to run it back. Meanwhile, over Kentucky, Oscar Tshiebwe, he continues to add in his massive hardware list of trophies. On Friday, he picked up 2 more National Player of the Year honors. He was named the 2022 or won the 2022 Oscar Robertson Trophy, the U.S. Basketball Writers Association's most outstanding men's college basketball player, and the AP Player of the Year honor. Junior forward averaged a double-double, 17 points and 15 rebounds per game as Kentucky's top scorer and the nation's leading rebounder this season. Meanwhile, at LSU, they continue to turn things over, and some news was made Friday afternoon as Mwani Wilkinson entered the transfer portal. He started 30 games for the Tigers this year. That is the 11th Tigers player to enter the portal. There are now no remaining players from this past season's team on LSU's roster. It is a complete overhaul with Will Wade out, and apparently, punishments coming down soon. We don't know when or what that's going to look like. 1 year postseason ban, 2 year postseason ban, whatever it's going to be. A lot of question marks about the future of LSU basketball. Thus, man, their whole roster entering the transfer portal. It is going to be a different looking team at LSU next season. Meanwhile, over Florida, their great Torian Green, he's returning to Gainesville. The point guard who was on Florida's back-to-back national championship teams in 06 and 07. He will join the new staff on new Gators head coach's Todd Golden's staff. He will be director of player development. 24/7 Sports reporting Torian Green going to Florida to work under Todd Golden. He's currently on Billy Donovan's Chicago Bulls staff as a player development coordinator. So always good to have one of your best players in your team history come back and be a coach there. Meanwhile, Omar Payne, who started his college career at Florida, averaging just over 15 minutes per game in his 2 seasons at Gainesville. He transferred to Illinois this past offseason, but according to Matt Zenitz of On3 Sports, Payne has entered his name into the transfer portal once again, so he is back on the move. And over at South Carolina, Eric Stevenson, he played his 2 years at Wichita State to start his career, and then ended up at South Carolina this past season. Now he has announced he will play for a 4th school in 5 years. On Sunday, he revealed he is committing to West Virginia. And there you have it. That is the latest in SEC hoops news all around the country. Again, congrats to South Carolina and the women's team for winning it all. It'll be a fun offseason and fun look ahead for them next year as the conference just continues to get tougher, but man, South Carolina just seems to get better. All right, when we come back, we are going to discuss the dominance of Tennessee baseball, and we'll get you caught up on all the rest of the SEC baseball weekend that was. But first, need to remind you guys about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds. You can find podcasts and reviews for all the different leagues this season. Like the Masters is fun to bet on because you get some pretty good odds on some guys. And, don't go with the favorite, but go with some of those guys that are in the middle tier or even some long shots. You can have some fun with it. BetOnline, your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to their website right now. You can do so on your mobile device. Learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline.net. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. Run along here, Locked On SEC. And man, we had a busy weekend of sports, from watching the Final Four in men's to watching the Final Four in women's to watching SEC baseball. You get spring training baseball going on. There's so much stuff going on, but particularly if you're a fan of an SEC school, your team is doing something. Softball, also with some great series as well. But thought we would get you caught up on what went down over the weekend in SEC baseball. And we start with the story so far of the still relatively young season. I say that as we're only a couple weeks into SEC play, but Tennessee baseball not showing any signs of cooling off. And now the Vols have added another sweep to their record, this time of Vanderbilt. The Vols beat Vandy 5-0 to close out their series as Drew Beam improved to 6-0 on the mound. Drew Gilbert paced the Vols on offense, going 2 for 5 with a home run and driving in 3. The Vols got 4 of the runs from the 7th inning on, and Vanderbilt was held to 2 hits on the day. Tennessee now has 19 straight wins. That is a program record and is the first SEC team in 28 years to start 9-0 in league play. On Saturday, Trey Lipscomb, he went 3 for 4 with a double and a home run. Jordan Beck also had a multi-hit effort. On Friday, Christian Moore was the only player to record a multi-hit game for the Vols. Jordan Beck and Luke Lipschitz drove in a couple of runs. Tennessee has now won 8 consecutive SEC road series. That is a feat that stretches back to 2019. Vols are 8-0 in weekend series on the road since the beginning of last season. Now, the Tennessee-Vanderbilt baseball series, it was an intense rivalry, but it did not take long for things to get controversial. On Friday night, Tennessee's Jordan Beck hit a home run in the top of the first. However, the homer did not count as he was called for an illegal bat. As reporters noted and video showed, the bat in question had an inspection sticker, which added to the confusion. Vols skipper Tony Vitello, he was unhappy about it and explained, or actually went on to joke about it. He said, "I don't even know what Jordan Beck should be at the University of Tennessee. I think he forged his transcript. He's actually a 35-year-old man named Mike Honcho." It was a joke he made on ESPN2. But yeah, one of those weird stipulation things that you need to get the bat inspected for weekend play, and apparently it had been inspected for midweek play and not approved for the weekend. So weird stipulation. Didn't hurt the Vols, though, as they cruise 3-0 on the weekend, sweep the Vanderbilt Commodores. And I did see Tony Vitello said, "Look, we gotta get some bigger stadiums here in the state of Tennessee." He said both Vanderbilt and in Knoxville, stadiums are just too small. Now, Tennessee and Vanderbilt, I think, both plans to renovate and add to their stadium capacity down the road. But yeah, I would say if you're getting sellouts, and look, the more you keep winning, Ball fans are going to be coming out of the woodwork wanting to support this team. So congrats to Tony Vitello. What a weekend for him, and what a season so far for the Vols. Now, other scores around the SEC this weekend. Georgia had a clean sweep of the Florida Gators with some dominant pitching from Jonathan Cannon and some hot bats as they put up 15 hits in their series, sweeping their series sweeping win on Saturday, winning 14-8. It was certainly nice for Georgia after they stubbed their toe and lost the series at Kentucky just a week ago. So Georgia takes care of Florida. Meanwhile, Auburn, they had a nice series win in Baton Rouge over top 25 LSU. Auburn able to hold off LSU for a winning game one. LSU evened the series with a 9-2 win on Friday night. But Auburn, they got the series win on Saturday afternoon with a 6-4 win. Sonny DeShera continues to be dominant at the plate. In that game, he went 4 for 5 with a home run and 3 RBIs. On the season, his numbers now batting .461 with 8 home runs and 24 RBIs. LSU, a couple times on the weekend, walked Sonny DeShera. Didn't want to face him with runners on, but he still got the best of him. Unbelievable what that kid is doing so far this year. Meanwhile, Arkansas, they played host to Mississippi State. Got 2 dominant wins to start the weekend, winning 8-1 and 12-5. And then on Sunday, found themselves in an extra inning affair. Just could not scratch across runs. Kept getting runners on. Couldn't get them in. And Mississippi State able to pull out the win in 12 innings, winning 5-3 on Sunday to avoid the sweep. Now, Arkansas's Connor Nolan, he pitched 7 innings of 1-run ball on Friday night. Very impressive. And then on Saturday, Caden Wallace, he drove in 4 runs to lead the Razorbacks. So Arkansas getting back on the right track. Mississippi State kind of, what's going on, fellas? Ole Miss, they took 2 out of 3 to win a series up in Lexington versus Kentucky. The Rebels won a pitcher's duel on Friday night, game in which their pitching staff did not allow an earned run. Kentucky, they broke out their bats on Saturday for a 9-2 win before Ole Miss answered on Sunday with a 10-1 victory. Jack Washburn and Jack Doherty, they were lights out on the mound on Sunday. Alabama, they lost 3-2 versus Texas A&M on Friday night before coming back to win on Saturday and Sunday to take the series. The Tide racked up 11 hits on Saturday and then 11 more hits on Sunday to take 2 out of 3. Aggies had some good pitching earlier in the season, but not as reliable as of late. Ryan Prager and Micah Dallas gave up a bunch of runs on the weekend, so congrats to the Tide taking that series. And lastly, Missouri, they took 2 out of 3 versus South Carolina. It's a matchup of 2 teams that have just been struggling in the conference this season. Luke Mann drove in 4 in Sunday's win for Mizzou. Austin Morozes pitched well in Sunday's win for the Tigers. And there you have it. That is the latest around the conference, around the diamond, as we'll call it, for the SEC baseball going on around the conference. There's a lot of good hitters and a lot of really good pitching. So congrats to all the teams that are kind of evening things up. But, man, it's when you look at standings, it's just you got Tennessee in the East leading things. There's a big logjam of a bunch of teams sitting at 3-6. And, of course, in the West, you got Arkansas kind of leading the way right now at 7-1. But still anybody's conference, of course, the rest of the way with Ole Miss, LSU, A&M, Alabama, Mississippi State, all right in there. There you have it. That is around the conference. Actually, those standings not updated if you're watching us on YouTube. Add the extra loss there for Arkansas. But nonetheless, Arkansas leading the SEC West. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Reminder, you can subscribe and catch us every time we're here with you right here on the podcast. We're going to have some great guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. For South Carolina fans, you definitely want to keep listening. Later this week, we'll have a very special guest joining us. And quick reminder, go make your second list and check out the Locked On NFL Draft podcast with Ryan Tracy and Eric Crocker, bringing the NFL Draft to life every day with insight analysis on college football prospects. NFL Draft right around the corner. We'll get into more of that discussion as well, as I think, 10 or 11 SEC guys projected right now by CBS Sports to go in the first round. So we'll certainly get into more of that as well. I'm Chris Gordy. Talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.